Traders, how are you? Marcello, founder of the Day Trading Academy, co-founder of Speed Up Trader. Today we're going to be doing the recap of what happened in the markets last week. Overall, we started, let's say, with a negative. We started with the holiday, then we started dipping down again, but then we were able to recover quite a bit. Don't forget, leave your questions, hashtag Ask Marcello, whether you're watching here on YouTube or Instagram. I'm going to ask you guys to leave a like there on the video as well. That helps a lot with the YouTube algorithm and also the Instagram algorithm. And if you guys have any questions, just leave with the hashtag Ask Marcello. Don't forget to subscribe and all that fancy stuff. Monday, markets were closed. We had Labor Day. Tuesday, markets closed lower as well. We had the third straight session with a lot of heavyweight tech names being sold off. Wednesday, we closed far higher. Tesla alone was able to recover 11% of their market valuation with their gains. And Thursday, we closed far lower with the S&P closing with its fourth negative day. The last 5 days, 4 have been negative rather than positive. So we've only had one positive day out of the last 5. Friday was mixed. We had a lot of gains in the tech sector, which that's generally was providing a lot of the volatility so far in the markets over the past few months. And we had all the three major indexes post their second weekly decline. So we're not flying to the upside like we were before, right? U.S. stocks are lower this week. The Dow, the main index in the U.S., if not one of, or if not if the main index, negative 1.69%. For the year, it's negative 3.06%. The S&P 500, which is the main market that we teach on, negative 2.57%, with a positive of 3.41% in 2020 so far. And for the week, the NASDAQ was down 4.23%, and it's positive just under 21% for the year. Overseas market news, the European markets were generally higher, mostly higher. The FTSE in London was a positive 4.01%. Latin American markets were mixed. My dear Colombia had quite a bit of a routing, not in terms of the market, but the economy overall. There was a situation where the cops killed a lawyer. It wasn't a black guy, it was a white guy. And then the movement started with Colombia Lives Matters, and now they're protesting against the police. And it's a bit weird for me to talk about because I've talked, you guys know that I've been based in, I just turned up the light. It looks a lot better, doesn't it? Look at the camera. Look, no hands, look. All right. So, Colombia has been, everybody always asks me, well, isn't Colombia dangerous? And it's so funny how a lot of us, when we talk about these countries, we see these war zones now in New York and Chicago and Portland and LA and Seattle, and then it happens in Colombia, but Colombia's dangerous. So, it's sad to see, but, obviously their police brutality is a big thing as well. Africa and the Middle East, South Africa was up 4.09%, most positive rather than others. In the Far East, Philippines was plus 3.16%, while Indonesia was negative 4.44%. Very big news in the Bitcoin and the crypto space. The countries of France, Germany, Spain, Netherlands, and also Italy are backing the European Commission's goal to regulate the four asset-backed cryptocurrencies called stablecoins. So if you guys don't know basically how this works, and remember that the cryptos, I always mention this because I have a lot of new guys that kind of watch the series, but the Bitcoins and the cryptos of the world, they have two pieces. They have the actual digital currency, which is also called cryptos or Bitcoin or Ethereum, for example, and then they have the technology which they use, and that together are generally called the cryptocurrencies. Now, that's two separate pieces. We have the blockchain technology, which is also considered distributed ledger technology, which they're now using in real estate and other things. That's what I think is going to revolutionize the world. And then you have the digital currency. So in the digital currency space, you also have these other coins called stable coins. Now, the dollar years ago used to be connected to gold, right? The Mexican peso years ago used to be connected to silver. and gold as well, obviously. Well, stable coins are essentially cryptos like Bitcoin that are connected to an asset or a basket of assets, like what the Facebook coin wanted to be. Well, the European countries now are all agreeing that what they want to be able to do is stop allowing them to function in the Eurozone until there's actually legal, regulatory, and oversight challenges addressed. So this is again what I've talked to you guys before, where I love the idea of Bitcoin. I love the idea of what it could be, what the vision is for it, but I don't think the governments are going to agree to it. And this is another example of that, how they just shut it down. They just say, bam, it's illegal, you're done. Now, that doesn't mean it's still not going to exist. It's still going to go up and down, and you're going to be able to trade it and invest in it, assuming you don't have some of these exchanges or going bankrupt, or CEOs of some of the exchanges stealing your money, because it has happened in these markets because they are not regulated at all. But I thought that was really interesting because, again, we have another example now how they just literally are going to make it illegal until they, have the regulation, so to speak. Bitcoin hit a fresh return. Went down to 9,800 range on Monday. It's still below 10,000. But don't forget. Analysts said it's going to get 50,000 this year. Don't forget. Remember, the last 2 years I've been telling you guys it's not going to get there again. And one of the things that I think is really unusual is, you do have some people that think Bitcoin is the future and the new currency, and that's fine. But notice the difference between silver and gold, how they have skyrocketed and generally stayed pretty high. And look at how Bitcoin didn't go up at the same rate that gold and silver did. It took a lot longer to do so. It happened over relatively recent, right, in the last few weeks. But notice it didn't stay there. It didn't go higher. It just crashed right back down. That, I think, is a good indication of the fact that Bitcoin or cryptos aren't going to be what people say they're going to be, even though I do believe that blockchain, which is part of the technology of Bitcoin that's starting to be used in other places, is going to be the future. Overall, for the week, it saw a 20% loss on Monday alone, falling from the 12,000 level. For the week, it went down 2.09% to 10,354.50. Financial and banking news: the ongoing expansion of the U.S. efforts to hobble Chinese companies has caused a rush of global companies and also lenders to reduce exposure to a lot of these firms. And now there's been a bit of a situation where a lot of companies are looking to see which companies, let's say, the U.S. is going to choose to be able to bar from the U.S. And it's a bit of a tricky situation, right? Because obviously a lot of U.S. and other foreign countries aren't allowed to function in China. But we're all supposed to allow Chinese companies to function in our countries, right? In commodities, the COVID losses in crude have amounted to over 121,000 job losses, according to an association called the Petroleum Equipment and Services Association. Now that the U.S. crude has fallen 7% just on Tuesday alone to about $37 a barrel, they're saying that this is going to exacerbate the situation in the job market for oil. Overall, for the week, U.S. crude is down 6.53% to $37.33. It's still down just a touch under $39, 39%, I should say. And international Brent is down 7.10% for the week, while it's still down close to 40% for the year. Precious metals for the week didn't go down like Bitcoin. Gold actually went up 0.27% to $19.41, and silver is down 0.85% to $26.81. In political news, Afghan reps have given very surprising and also very, very good news that governments from Afghanistan and the Taliban, if you guys don't remember that from 9/11, 19 years ago, we just passed the commemorance of that fortunate event. They're meeting Saturday. I should say, when you guys see this, they met yesterday on Sunday. Should be the 11th of September for historic peace talks to be able to end 2 decades of war that has literally killed tens and thousands of people. And it's an international situation too, because you guys know the U.S. is in the Middle East, other countries as well. So it'd be great to see that actually come to an end. In economic news, the new U.S. claims for state unemployment benefits remained at elevated levels last week, coming in at 884,000 when 846,000 was the forecast ending September 5th. It's strengthening a lot of views in the labor market that there's going to be more of a gradual recovery rather than a V pattern, right? My opinion is it's going to be more like a W, right? We're going to see that pop that we've already had because things started opening, and then we're just going to come right back down, and then we're going to actually recover. The UK economy is growing at 6.6% in July on a monthly basis as they move to recover their economy due to the self-imposed lockdowns from the COVID. Remember that the CDC reported that only 6% of all the deaths were actually of COVID. The other 94% had COVID. They died with the disease, but they didn't die of the disease, which actually shows us data, right? Let's not get emotional about the situation. The data shows that it is very contagious, but it's not as deadly as we originally thought. The economy of the UK, though, is still looking to make up nearly 50% of the GDP loss from the pandemic. But now we have a situation with Brexit, and they threw a wrench in the negotiations as well due to the fact that the UK basically just admitted that they're going to break international law from some of the treaties that they signed with the European Union. Spain's industrial output rose 9% in July from June. They are looking like having a V-shaped recovery observed since May, at least in the industrial sector, although they still remain below the previous year levels. It looks like they're starting to recover quite a bit after an 18.5% contraction in quarter two. Corporate news: Tuesday, Tesla shares dropped over 20% to $332 after they were snubbed by the S&P 500. There are other companies that were accepted like Etsy, Teradyne, and also Catalent. They, however, Tesla, have a $390 billion capitalization, and they're 10 times larger than the companies that were actually accepted in the S&P 500. Other than that, Tesla stock is up nearly 300% in 2020. And over 600% in the last 52 weeks. The electric car maker Nikola Corp jumped 40% on Tuesday after GM, General Motors, one of the largest automakers in the world, decided to invest $2 billion into the firm. There was also a hedge fund that declared, they sent out a report saying that they're a fraudulent company, so their stock crashed quite a bit after that. Oracle, which is a huge multinational tech company that you may have never heard before, is absolutely huge. They reported earnings this week. They're up over 4% on Friday trading when they reported revenue of $9.37 billion. They're growing at about 2% on an annualized basis. And in trade news, the UK has put Brexit trade talks into a crisis, as I mentioned, because of the situation where they may break the law on purpose from the treaties that they have agreed to. They were able to, I should say, sign a free trade agreement with a major country after the exit from leaving the EU. Their first major agreement with a major economy, Japan, they were able to agree with. That's their 11th largest trading partner. And the UK businesses won't face tariffs on some 99% of all of the exports to Japan. Without an agreement of the separation between the EU and the UK, nearly $1 trillion in trade may be thrown into chaos at the beginning of next year. U.S. Customs and Border Protection officials have ordered a blocking of imports of certain products from China, including cotton, tomato, and other 5 imports from the western region of Xinjiang in China, essentially because of the human rights abuses that they're saying that China is committing against the Muslims. In technology, AstraZeneca is suspending global trials of their experimental vaccine of coronavirus after they reported that an unexplained illness was happening in some of the patients. The WHO, which is the World Health Organization, said that they probably had the leading candidate for the vaccine and the furthest developed so far. So hopefully we'll get the vaccine so the whole world can go back into normalcy, I should say, because, only 6% of people that actually get the virus are dying, and many of them, as reported by the CDC, are elderly in nature. So got to make sure we have the vaccine where this is for me is the worst part. Make sure we have the vaccine to make sure that we allow people to recover that have mostly died of other illnesses. Other than that, in investment news, U.S. mortgage applications from purchasing of homes are up 3% from last week and up over 40% from a year ago. This has a lot to do, in my opinion, with the situation of a lot of people leaving the big cities like Chicago and New York and others for, other places like Florida and Texas. I've been looking at property, for example, in Florida, and it's just every time you find a place, it already has a bunch of offers on it. The record low mortgage rates have also been helping in regards to boosting the mortgage market. BP is continuing its major strategy shift in abandoning its oil major business model. They've invested $1.1 billion into U.S. assets from Norway's Equinor, which is basically a wind power plant. They invested 50% in what's called Empire Wind and Beacon Wind developments off the U.S. East Coast. With another company, Equinor is going to keep 50%, and they're going to have the other 50 as well. Rio Tinto, the CEO, which is a mining company in Australia, unfortunately blew up a 46,000-year-old sacred indigenous site in Australia to expand an iron ore mine. I am a capitalist at heart, but this is a little bit fucked up, guys. Excuse my French, but let's profits are profits, but we don't gotta go blowing up a 46,000-year-old indigenous site. International events this week. In a matter of weeks, California has been hit by 2 record-breaking heat waves, hundreds of thousands of blazes torching 1.67 million acres in lightning storms, which have been proven to not be climate change. They've actually found that the electric company has not been managing the forest properly, in addition to the state of California. And in Oregon, they've actually arrested and found arsonists that have been lighting the forest on fire, unfortunately. As I mentioned, 1.67 million acres have been torched so far. U.S. military has announced plan that they're going to reduce their presence in Iraq from 5,200 troops to 3,000 troops this month. This is a formalization. A lot of people were already expecting it, and they're saying that a U.S.-led coalition, officials from that coalition are stating that the Iraqi forces now are mostly able to handle the remnants of the Islamic State themselves. I mentioned the situation in Colombia. Hundreds of officers and 55 civilians were injured, 7 people killed after, the riots and protests popped off for Colombia Lives Matter movement after a white lawyer, 46 years old, who had children, by the way, was killed with a taser in Colombia. He was asking them to stop that, and they just kept tasing him over and over again. Japanese Prime Minister Abe set in motion a policy change months before his resignation to allow for the first time after World War II for Japan's military to plan for strikes on land targets like China. And in unusual facts this week, Trump was nominated, President Trump, by a Norwegian lawmaker for the Nobel Peace Prize in 2021 after brokering a peace deal between Israel and the UAE, which is the United Arab Emirates where Dubai is. It's the second time that he's put forward the Trump in his honor, and the committee, the Norwegian Nobel Committee, has declined to comment. And the U.S. auction house has stopped the sale of a of a manuscript that's from 1521, the year 1521, 1521. They're stating that this may have been stolen from Mexico. It was a royal order from the Spanish royalty to a conquistador named Hernán Cortés and Pedro de Alvaro, and it was towards the capital of the Aztec Empire, the city. I'm gonna butcher this. Tenochtitlan, I think it is. And so it was scheduled to be sold for $20,000 to $30,000 on September 24th, but they put a hold to it because they think it was actually stolen. And in Australia, there's a dispute over the policies to protect the koalas. It's literally being dubbed a koala war in the Australian state of New South Wales. The environmentalists that want to save the koalas and also not allow construction in the habitats of the koalas, while the other side, I don't know, they're full. They probably don't want to build houses on their habitat, but they just don't want it to be as restrictive. There's essentially a war going on in regards to that, dubbed the Koala War there in Australia. That's the news for this week, guys. Let me know if you guys have any questions. Don't forget to subscribe, and we'll see you next week.